Hey, everybody. Welcome to an extra special episode of the Core Podcast. I'm Scott Johnson, and I get to interview somebody I've liked from afar because I really, really like their games. And we promised to bring you guys more interviews like this. And so today we start with Seth Coster, co-founder of Butterscotch Shenanigans. Seth, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're really excited to do this because in the wake of the release of Crashlands 2, I've been raving about it on my show. People have been hearing about it here and there. And then back in the day, nearly 10 years ago, we were talking about your first game, Crashlands 1, or the first of this series. And loved it then, love it now. And so much has happened in between. This just seemed like a great opportunity to hook up with you guys and talk about your new release. How are you overall? Like, how are you feeling? This is another launch. You got a big one under your belt. I know things don't end when that happens. There's all sorts of markety stuff and, the long haul or whatever you're going to do with patches and all that. But what, how are you feeling about things with Crashlands 2 at this stage?
Feeling very good. So I would say this is our second smooth launch we've ever done. So the first Crashlands, when we launched it, we did a beta test I think it was about 6 weeks before the launch, and it was a 2-week beta. Yeah. And we got 2,200 bug reports during that time, only from like 40 testers, by the way.
Wow.
And everything was on fire the whole time. And we spent another 6 weeks post-launch of the original game, still just crunching and fixing bugs. Yeah. We kind of changed everything in the studio in terms of how we approach our bug testing and QA and deployment pipelines and all that stuff. So that by the time we launched Levelhead, which was in 2020, we literally launched the game and then we just took the weekend off because everything was fine. So this has been kind of similar. We basically just had one kind of blocker bug that nobody had seen in all of our testing. That once you get the game out to tens of thousands of players or more, then somebody's going to find it, right? Somebody's going to find the weird edge case thing. Sure. And so we had just just one of those little things to kind of emergency fix over the weekend. But otherwise, it's gone well. It didn't kind of go like mega blockbuster mode, but it was a good launch. And it's going to support the studio just fine. Which is great. That's what I would like to hear because I really like what you guys are up to. I've played all 3 of your games. Did anything happen before Crashlands? I mean, obviously you guys that was sort of your formative time. So we started in 2013 and we made these kind of smaller mobile games. One was called Towel Fight 2, The Monocle of Destiny, and then the other is Quadrupus Rampage. Actually, so after we had made like a couple of these smaller, more like kind of free to play kind of mobile games, that was that was just my brother and me. So I was doing programming and Sam, my brother, was doing art. So just 2-man studio at the time. Sure. So he got diagnosed with cancer at that time.
That's right. I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that kind of makes you take, and he was 23, it's awful. It kind of makes you take a pause where you're just like, if the last thing that I did is the last thing I'll ever do, do I want that to be just like a small mobile game? Yeah. Can we go bigger? Can we try to make something more meaningful and bigger that speaks to people? So Crashlands was kind of his sort of dream game where he had all these different things that he liked from all these different genres, all these different, sort of styles of gameplay. And he kind of just led the charge where he was like, can we do this? Can we put all this stuff together? And, who's going to say no to your brother with late stage cancer? And it's like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to, whatever you want to do, we're going to figure it out. And we're going to make it happen. So, so that was what kicked off Crashlands. And actually that game took long enough to make because it took 2 years, which is the longest we had ever worked on anything. That we actually launched 2 other games while we were making Crashlands because we were so accustomed to making small games that we could just bang them out in a couple of weeks. So we made a game called Flop Rocket and another game called Roid Rage. Got those games out, and then Crashlands was the one that really kind of kind of struck a nerve with people and like really kind of took off. So
yeah, Crashlands. I remember when it happened, I was very excited about it because I was at the time I was doing more mobile than I do now, but I was also a fairly avid PC gamer, and it was the first game or one of the first games I can remember, maybe the first, that gave me a way to synchronize my stuff, my saves, my progress across those devices. Nobody else was doing that, and if you had just a Steam game. Like these days, if you're running something on a Steam Deck, which by the way, this game runs fantastically on there. I know probably at some point the verification's coming, but
yeah, we're working on that. They've got some beef with some of our implementation of things.
Oh, do they? Interesting. Yeah, I'm always curious how that stuff works, but it runs real well. I've had Zippo issues with it. So if anyone out there is wondering if you can run it, you definitely can. But I remember when this thing hit and it came out and I went, I don't even know what genre to call this, but I know that I'm going to be glad I can share these saves because there's stuff to do here that I'm going to want to continue on the go and then maybe work on when I'm at home. And so you guys had this like cross save thing going on, which again felt very early to me compared to even mainstream console PC connectivity.
Nobody was doing it.
Yeah,
at the time.
Yeah, it's weird. You guys almost cornered it and started it in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a couple of interesting reasons. Like we always find it kind of funny when like we hear players talking about like crossplay between consoles and Steam or whatever or cross save.
Yeah.
And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that it's harder not to do it. Because
that's interesting.
If you have online connectivity in your game, then you have to go out of your way to turn that connectivity off on different platforms.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So in the case of like the cloud saving stuff, we actually kind of came at that from a different problem set, which was still to this day, none of the platforms offer a way for developers to really stay in touch with your players.
I see.
So like if we're launching Crashlands 2, it's not like we can talk to Apple and Google and Nintendo and Steam and whatever and say, hey, we're releasing a sequel. Can we somehow reach out to all the people who have played the prior game and tell them that the sequel's coming? There's no way to do that.
Oh, interesting. I never even thought about this. This is a problem in the whole industry, isn't it? Nobody's got a way to do that very well.
Yeah. So that was our first problem is we're like, if we want to be in this for the long haul, then we need a way to maintain a player base that we can communicate with.
Sure.
So we're like, okay, well, to do that, we need to be able to email people. So how do we get people's email addresses? It's like, well, we have to provide services, or we got to provide something in exchange, right?
Sure.
Give us something of value,
valuable thing, sure. Yeah.
And so that was where the idea of like, well, if we have a user login system where we have like our own cross-platform achievements, cross-platform progression syncing and stuff like that, then that's a high-value thing that then also allows us to basically create a newsletter,
right,
that we can then use to email people. So that weirdly, like that was the problem we were trying to solve. And then the cross-save stuff, once you have user login and file syncing, then like doing it across platforms is, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything different.
Sure.
It's the same game in both places, same code, and it just works.
Yeah,
so,
it worked really well. I remember being in love with it. And for those at home that are like, Wayne, I still don't know what Crashlands is, I'll give you a brief description. It's essentially the only...
try to describe it.
It's the only subgenre survival game that I actually enjoy, and I'll explain why. And I don't mean that in hyperbole terms. It really truly is. Most of these games have pain points that I can't get past. And one of them is you need to be starving, so make sure you're eating all the time. No offense to these games, by the way, because I know they have their fans and they have, they're there for a reason. It's a big subgenre for a reason, which, by the way, has kind of exploded since 2016. There's so many of these now. Everything from kind of, top-down sort of three-quarter view sort of Crashland style stuff all the way up to really fancy-looking Unreal Engine, third-person giant world stuff. They all seem to have some of these features like, well, you're hungry all the time, so make sure you eat. There's a thing where you got to camp and sit by the fire. If you don't do that, you're going to die because something's going to get you. There's this whole stamina thing. That kind of grind is not my jam. And I don't know what that says about me as an adult gamer. I think I just have, my time is more valuable perhaps than it may have been when I was younger or whatever. But this game comes along and Crashland says, hey, what if we gave you that essential gather materials, craft better stuff, craft cool things, build things, progress, do quests. All of those things are there, but we take the pain points out. If you're gathering wood, you can hold unlimited wood forever. This is a video game, for heaven's sakes. Carry all the wood you need. There's no limit of 10 pieces of wood or whatever the thing was.
Yeah, the idea that you're like making it realistic by, you can only carry 900 logs.
Right.
Like, really?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Why not just uncap it? What are we doing?
You take another game like World of Warcraft and you go, all right, I have limited bag space. I can only so many stacks per slot. But if you think about what my orc hunter is actually carrying on his back, it's ridiculous.
It's gotta be 30 tons, at least.
It's impossible. Nobody can carry that much stuff around. So
I mean, orcs are pretty jacked.
Yeah, exactly. But even in a survival game where you're chopping down a tree and it gives you 4 logs, that's already too big a load for you to take back to camp. Yet you're doing it. So I don't buy this whole thing where, you break realism or whatever. And I understand that those features do introduce resistance that creates the sense of realism a little bit. But I really I glommed immediately onto your plan of like, no, just carry what you want, as much of it as you want, and don't worry about that. Let's not let that be either a way to slow the game down or to control pacing. You get to just go. And there are still things in the world that slow me because I haven't gotten to an NPC yet, haven't done that quest yet, or I haven't finished this item yet, or found enough mats for it, or whatever it may be. Like, that's still in there, but those aren't points of resistance for me. Those are goals I can reach. And I'm not constantly going, I'm almost dead because I haven't eaten in 5 minutes or whatever it is. So was that always the plan? Did this thing blueprint out that way where you're like, throw those norms in the trash. We're going to make it so this guy can carry everything he ever wanted to carry.
More or less, yeah. So whenever we start working on a game, one of the things we do at the very beginning is kind of sit down and think through, like, what are some analogs? Like, what are some other games that are kind of similar to what we're going to make? Mm-hmm. And what don't we like about those games? Right. And can we make something that pivots away from, like you're saying, these kind of pain points? And for me, I think you and I are probably similar in the sense that I don't like the idea of like, hey, I made this cool pick and it's broken.
I hate that.
I got to make it again and it's broken again, right? Because it makes everything really disposable and there's nothing particularly special or unique that you get to just keep and then move forward.
Right.
So like a lot of the core design of these Survivor games is the starting point is that you're kind of oversaturated with pain points. So like you're saying, thirst, hunger, some kind of exposure problem, limited inventory. Basically, the game starts with you kind of being overburdened with problems, and then the game kind of uses that to establish an internal motivation for you to want to solve those problems. You're like, I'm so sick of running out of inventory space. I'm going to build some chests. I'm so sick of dying of thirst. I'm going to figure out how to make some kind of, I don't know, well or something, right?
Right.
So all of those things kind of serve as the basis for creating an internal motivation for you to like want to undo all those problems. But a lot of survival games then kind of end up in the same spot, which is once you're past that, then the loop kind of slows down, right? Where like once you're no longer starving to death or anything like that, then the game needs to kind of provide something new, which is why I think games like Valheim do so well, because they start in that state and then they provide more stuff for you to do once you solved all those initial problems.
Yeah. Pretty quickly too. You can kind of get through those and and you're worried about bosses and biomes and the next biome, and like the game becomes a very different game after you've kind of mastered those initial issues.
So the thing with Crashlands that ended up kind of catalyzing all this stuff together was the introduction of quests and an overarching storyline, which what kind of switched it from being more of a survival-ish kind of a game into what we could best describe as like a crafting-driven action RPG, where it really is more about adventuring through the world, interacting with characters, doing some kind of a big, like world-ending kind of story and like being the hero of the story. But the way you progress is not by like grinding XP. It's by the stuff that you get that makes you strong.
Right. Yeah. And I really like that. It's like, well, the reason I've gone on record before is saying I have a major beef with what are probably two of the greatest games ever made, the two most recent Zelda games, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. My biggest beef is weapons break almost immediately, and there's no way to repair them. To me, that just sucks the fun out of those games. Again, it has its players, it has its likers. I'm not saying my opinion is shared by everybody, but there is something about that just takes the fun out. What I want is a game where it sort of not only respects my time, but respects what I've earned. And in Crashlands 1 and 2, there's this sense of, for example, there are tools whose job it is to only ever do the thing it's meant to do. So to cut down objects, let's say, to cut down, alien tree-like objects. That's the job of that tool. And as you work your way through the game, you'll find things you can't chop down. They're too big, they're too tough, they're whatever. So what happens through the progression of the game, you will be able to have better versions of the thing that will cut down stuff. Not that you're going to have 400 recipes of different things to cut down and then have to sort through them to find them to go, well, which one does stone? Shoot, I got to go find it. It's like, no, that's that slot, like I'm playing on controller on the PC. That slot is assigned to a key. I flip to it. Bim, bam, boom. I've cut me some wood. As that thing improves, it cuts better wood. Again, I don't have to think that hard. I know there's progression there. I know that there's goals to meet. And that's great. That feels good when I reach them. But I'm not having to sift through a big pile of hammers to find the right hammer or worry about which ones are broken or any of that. I love that.
Yeah, we call them just maintenance mechanics, right? Like keep doing the same thing over and over again to like stay where you're at. Keep making the same tool over and over again because it keeps breaking, right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of do away with all those maintenance mechanics. So you can just enjoy the game, move forward into the next phase of stuff, keep all the cool stuff that you've done and all the cool items you've gotten, which is also something that we focused on in Crashlands 2 is there's a lot of the items that we call gadgets and trinkets, which are kind of like the focal point of building out different combat styles. Those items, you craft them once and you have them forever and they scale with the rest of your gear. So as your weapon gets better, as your armor gets better, like the crazy like flamethrower thing you find early game, you can just keep using that if you like it. You know, if it goes well with your playstyle, you can just keep using that forever, and it'll just keep getting stronger with you.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I like that a lot. It reminds me a bit of. I know it's implemented totally differently, but Hades does this with their weapons. Basically, it's like if you glom onto an early one, that thing will serve you the entire game. And in some ways
people like what they like.
Yeah, they like what they like. Exactly. Yeah. Don't want to try to force them to use another thing because yes, it's more powerful, but who likes throwing a hammer or whatever whatever it may be. And I think that's really key and important. It's in a genre that is so overcrowded right now, but in 2016, it really wasn't. You guys were there when there were a few things happening. DayZ was a thing, and certainly Minecraft and some other stuff that kind of tapped into this. But it wasn't the saturated market it is now, especially in the indie space for survivor games in that genre. So now it's really crowded. How much of that, if any, affects Crashlands 2? Or do you feel like it affected either the development or the release or, where your expectations for sales of the game, that kind of stuff?
So we kind of swung the pendulum back and forth because when we made original Crashlands, the few kind of popular games at that time was like Don't Starve, Terraria, and Minecraft. We're kind of like the three, like the trifecta. And so by basically ditching all the survival-y kind of elements and introducing a lot of the story and questing, we kind of pivoted the game into its own space that the other three games didn't really occupy. It's still the case that most of these types of games don't do what Crashlands does. Most of them don't have the kind of like narrative and stuff. And also they're oftentimes built around a lot of like procedural generation and randomness and stuff like that. So we're kind of pivoting the Crashlands franchise with Crashlands 2 into something more RPG-like and less survival-like, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I can feel it while I'm playing it. There is definitely a twist there. Not a jarring one. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a new series, but there's a feeling of like, oh, you guys have emphasized an aspect of the game that the first one was less interested in. This one seems more interested, and it also matches the new visuals and stuff like that, which is nice.
Yeah, but then with Levelhead was our attempt to like find a hole in the market and fill it. And that was basically what we saw with Levelhead is we were like, okay, there's Mario Maker, which at the time had been released on the Wii U quite a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And we were like, Nintendo has not said anything about making any follow-up games to Mario Maker. It had a huge following, And we're like, this is such a cool game concept of like, just let players build crazy levels and share them. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we're like, maybe we can try to fill that hole in the market. Like we can come in where Nintendo kind of just like left. Right.
Sure.
But then, I think we were 10 months into development, and then Nintendo suddenly announced, "Hey, Mario Maker 2 is coming.
Yeah,
it's coming in 3 months or something."
Right.
So we suddenly rushed to get Levelhead out into early access. But then by that point, all of the attention was on Mario Maker 2.
Yeah,
and we just couldn't put a dent in the attention side of things.
That's the hard bit. Yeah, I was going to say that game. So I loved Levelhead, huge fan, would recommend it to anybody. It was on sale recently, and I pushed it like crazy. And I just think it's really, really, just even the stuff that's built in before you start building your levels, I think is a really fun sort of campaign run, and I loved it. But I understand kind of your point. We now live in a time, especially. 2020, you're talking about, the beginning of the pandemic, everybody staying home.
It was a month into the pandemic when we came out of early access.
That's gnarly. So it's, dealing with that, which sometimes can be a benefit, obviously, but trying to get eyeballs on your stuff these days is not what it used to be. Even in 2016, it just drastically feels like it changes every day. But this much time later, it's much harder to get the, let's say, loyal viewers of Mario Maker 1 and 2 content to go, I'm now going to shift and look at another game that's attempting similar things but doing their own unique stuff, and now I'm going to focus on that. We're bad at that at scale, and it doesn't work very well. And so I'm guessing what you're saying is that that thing didn't reach the heights it had the potential to. But for the life of me, I can't understand what happened there, because that game was great. It did everything I wanted out of a game like that.
Let me tell you, on launch weekend for Levelhead, we had 75 concurrent players on Steam.
Yeah.
It just did not go. It says an 86 or 97% positive on Steam.
Yeah.
Still feels like a missed opportunity, but I think for us it was like how do I put it? We thought there was a genre, but there was just a game, which was Mario Maker.
Yeah.
So sometimes you try to aim for a hole in the market, but it turns out there was no hole there at all. And for stuff like Survivor games, even though it's super crowded, it's crowded because the demand for that kind of game is just always there.
Yeah.
And so like, supply meets demand, and turns out by like jumping into that space, we were able to get dramatically more attention than we were able to get when we tried to go into a space that we thought was unoccupied.
It's frustrating because gamers are always talking about how we want original things, original ideas. And along comes a company with their own IPs, their own story to tell, their own characters. And then it doesn't do as well as if you were, let's say you guys were hired or contracted out by Sega of America to make Sonic Maker, and you made essentially Levelhead was all branded with Sonic stuff, and the Sonic fandom got a hold of it. I guarantee that thing would have been a mega bajillionaire thing, because again, recognizable characters, the nostalgia, all that other stuff comes into play. And as gamers, we are always going, do something original, gaming business. And then when you guys do, I feel like we're not holding up our end of the bargain sometimes as buyers.
It's okay. I mean, it's the duality of man, right? Like the internal joke we always have in the studio is that people simultaneously demand and hate change.
Yeah, that's such a true thing. In fact, that leads to my next question about visually. Crashlands 2 is quite a leap. It's a big difference from the first one. And I actually did a direct comparison, made a little short video while I was doing it, but went back and looked at the old one, which I played not that long ago because I still pop in there all the time. And then looked at the new one. I went, oh my gosh, it really is starkly different in terms of tone, some of the effects you're using. There's a lot of nice tilt shift thing happening with perspective. Mm-hmm. It's a very different looking game. It's still clearly Butterscotch.
But it feels the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It feels the same. Even the character's different. He's no longer giant head, small body. He's kind of a little bit more, proportioned out to be.
Proportional.
Yeah. Yeah. And at first it can be, if you're looking at them directly, it's a little jarring just because you didn't expect the differences, but it fit right in. So maybe talk about that for a second. How difficult is it to not want to completely throw out everything and the kitchen sink and start over with something, but also bring in new ideas without ruining the legacy of the thing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really get down to it, we changed absolutely everything from Crashlands 1 to Crashlands 2, from how the gearing works to how pets work, how crafting works, how base building works. Even the controls are totally different. And when we started kind of like beta testing the game with players of the original, some of them would be like, "This seems really similar," and we'd be like, "Go back and play the first one," and then they would do it, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, this is a completely different game." Which means we kind of hit our goal, which was we wanted to innovate and experiment and do some cool new stuff, but the game still had to feel like Crashlands. So it had to feel like how you remember Crashlands feeling, you know?
Yeah, that's
like maintain the soul of the game.
Yeah. It's like releasing, you put out a new Quake game, there is an immediate feeling you better have. It won't matter what it looks like. Your brain will make up the rest, but it needs to feel right. And this felt right as soon as I launched it.
Yeah. But it took us about a year of R&D to get all that stuff that you were talking about, like all the visual changes and everything. Totally new art pipeline, new animations. Animation system. I mean, every aspect of it from bottom to top had to be rethought, and it took about a whole year.
Yeah,
so it was something.
Where in the history of this did you guys start work on this game? Like after Levelhead, during Levelhead, like where did you guys start on this as a sequel?
So we launched Levelhead in April 2020, and then we had. Because we had been in early access for a year of Levelhead, we had already done essentially almost like weekly content patches for Levelhead up to launch.
Yeah.
So we did one more major patch for Levelhead, and then we started the design work and some of the experimentation for Crashlands 2 in I think like June of 2020.
No.
So yeah, it was a nearly 5-year development cycle.
Okay, interesting. That's just good to know. We're always talking on the shows about development cycles, how they've evolved over the years. Big AAA 300-man teams are taking 10, 12, 15 years to make games these days, it feels like. And I always wonder what that translates to with smaller teams and indies doing games like this. Are they in the 2, 3, 4, 5 year range? Sounds like 5 is where you guys were at.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Levelhead was 2 years. And I think that the challenge with making a sequel, and this is why do you think Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't out yet? You know? It's because gamers now aren't really satisfied with a game releasing and then that's it. Like there has to be more stuff coming around the corner, and so that's what you do. Like you keep adding content and patching things, and for us, it's something that. When we launch a game, we get feedback from players. There's some things that they want to see that's different. There's some complaints they have. And a lot of those are totally legitimate things that we need to be improving. And so if we spend, let's say hypothetically, we spend another 6 months working on stuff and adding stuff to Crashlands 2, then when if we start working on Crashlands 3, no promises, you know.
Yeah, sure. Hypothetical statement.
Hypothetically, if we start working on Crashlands 3, then the standard that Crashlands 3 would be held to is the 5 years of work that went into Crashlands 2, plus the 6 months of player feedback we got and features that we kind of added over time. And I think it was Terraria that in like the mid 2010s, they started working on a sequel. And then they just had to ditch it because they were like, we literally can't figure out how to make a sequel that adds more than what the previous game had.
Right.
Because they've been updating it for like 7 years at that point.
They still do patches now on that thing. It still gets attention. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really good point.
Still making money, so why wouldn't they?
You've seen other teams. I've seen teams struggle with this as well. Minecraft always trying to figure out how to do something new, and it usually kind of flops. It's never really a great add-on. The core game is still what matters most, and modding and some of that stuff. But in a case like this, because now you live in a time where player feedback is immediate, whether you want it or not. You probably are just, you get inundated at whatever level you're working at to add things and do that. Has that helped dictate what the roadmap is from here on out? Is there DLC, specific kinds of patches coming? Any of that you can share?
Yeah. So the biggest thing we're working on right now is, we're working on a 1.1 patch for Crashlands 2. Part of it is to address some of the features that we didn't bring from the original Crashlands that players still want. And we're like, well, Yeah, I mean, they got a good point. Like we could figure out a way to make that happen.
Sure.
So a big one is the compendium, which is almost like an in-game encyclopedia that has like a way for you to look up information about all the different creatures and resources and how, sort of like we call it internally, it's a completionist's torture device.
Yeah.
Like it shows you all the different things that you haven't yet done, so you can kind of check all the boxes.
I feel like every game's got a codex now, but I always forget to look at them. So I'm not the guy. I'm not
one of those types of players, but some people are like, if there's an unchecked box, I can't sleep until it's checked. So we're working on that. And then the other thing that I think is definitely a fair critique is that because we introduced so many new systems and changes in Crashlands 2, then I think we were a little too conservative with how quickly we unrolled some of the new combat systems and like new like play styles, weapons, gadgets, trinkets, and stuff.
Yeah.
It's too much of a slow burn at first. So in the 1.1 patch, we're also adding a bunch of new items to the early game so that you can have a lot more cool things to play with and ways to, fight enemies and stuff early game. And then kind of once we get those things shored up, then it'll be more into looking at stuff that adds more replay value, like other game modes and things like that.
Sure. I've always, I know it's kind of inside baseball, but I've always wondered if you say you're going to add some stuff to early game to help with that pacing, items, trinkets, whatever. Is that a safety measure you're holding back, in case sort of thing? Like, is that something you would plan for, or is it now like, based on early feedback and also our internal stuff and whatever, we better hurry up and make a bunch of items, or we better hurry up and change all this? Like, how prepared for that sort of change or add to the game are you guys as devs?
So we didn't think that it would be an issue, but because the game is so open, there's a wide variety of paths that players can take, which can dramatically affect how quickly they access certain tiers of content.
Right.
So like when we did our internal beta test, we had about 100 players come in and play it. Some people were getting into the tier 2 equipment in like an hour and a half, and some people were getting there in like 6 hours. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw that in the beta, and we're like, we should keep an eye on this to see if this creates a negative experience, or is it okay? Because like, if the player trusts that you're leading them down a progression path that opens up over time, then it's fine. But if they see that it's not going as quickly as they like, and they just assume that there's nothing else to it, and they just give a thumbs down and bail, then that's a big problem, right?
Yeah.
And so we thought it might be an issue, but we weren't really sure. But we've developed a lot of internal tools that allow us to pretty quickly create new items and integrate them into the game and stuff like that.
Sure.
Honestly, like, it's not going to be too long till we get this 1.1 patch out.
Awesome.
So,
looking forward to that. I know that the first game and this game certainly have shared one particular aspect that definitely makes the games feel like they are connected, and that is its sense of humor. One thing that is extremely hard in games, I've been around this long enough to know, is actually being funny in video games. It's freaking hard. And sometimes there are tricks to that. Maybe some British company releases a game. I played one recently. I forgot the name. But anyway, it was hilarious. But partly it was hilarious because I like British humor, and for whatever reason, it translated that way. Your games are funny, like legitimately funny. How are you doing that? Because I feel like there's maybe a secret here. I mean, if you don't want to share it with the world, you don't have to. But is it just because you guys are funny and that's just it?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably it. It's we got into games probably because we don't really take many things very seriously. And we want to just have fun. So like, we don't really make gloomy kind of like horror, gore kinds of games. Like our games are pretty vibrant and colorful and bouncy. And we also have some kind of filters in there. Like the run animation for the main character is just ridiculous, right? It's like this kind of high kicking dumb.
No, he's way too confident. He's so confident after a crash on a strange planet. I guess for the second time,
zipping around.
He's stoked to be there.
Yeah, and every now and then you'll get somebody who comes in and they're like, I mean, I think I want to play this game, but I hate how this like main character runs. And we're like, good, don't play it, because like if you're coming in kind of with a bad attitude. If you're coming in like not looking to have a good time, then you're just not going to, and like the jokes won't land and nothing's going to work.
Sure.
So a lot of that, like you got to kind of frame it up front to try to like get the audience that's going to get it by portraying the game in a good way.
Sure.
But yeah, otherwise we have a lot of item descriptions and tooltips and stuff that we don't really use those to actually convey useful information to the player. We just use those as opportunities to tell dumb jokes about things.
All right.
So like I have an example that I just grabbed, which was it's like we have like there's this antler that you can find it's called an ampy antler. And the tooltip for it just says, it appears quite sharp at first glance, but it becomes blurry when you squint. Right. So doesn't tell you anything useful about it at all.
No.
But if it's an opportunity to tell a joke, we take it. So
yeah, I think it's worked really well for these games. Levelhead also had a great deal of humor in it. These two games are what keeps me. Honestly, the questing is good by itself, but if it was all self-serious, something would be lost. There's something about the consistency of the goof around that's in this that I think really serves the game. Quite well.
The hard part is finding the balance between, like, if you're trying to tell a story, if it's all jokes, then the story has no weight to it.
Right.
Like things have to mean something, and if everything is a joke, then the story is meaningless and it doesn't have any kind of. It's not memorable. It doesn't have an emotional impact. So we did actually have a writer come in for Crashlands 2, which in Crashlands 1, it was just my two brothers and me putting the game together. So we didn't have a dedicated writer. And this time around we did. And so we did a lot of collaboration and powwows of how to like get that emotional depth where you have moments that actually do have kind of a gut punch to them, like to have some emotional weight, but then still keep things light elsewhere.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough, but
yeah, it's tricky. That's like I'm saying. I don't think a lot of devs achieve it, and I think you guys have done it. Now, obviously, one of the worst things about sense of humor and humor in general is that it's very subjective, and different people find different things funny or not. But I think as far as like, I don't laugh at a lot of video games. This game makes me laugh. And I laughed the minute he started running. Like you said, he's got a stride that I think it's just funny on the face of it.
Just going places.
Yeah, he's going places and going places quick. The other thing I was going to ask about the development of the game was, I think you're one of the very few teams that I follow pretty closely and play games from that also is super out there in terms of like exposure to your fan base. And in particular, you guys do a podcast, which back when you started it, very new idea for a small dev team. Nobody was doing that. You see more of it now these days. And hell, I host a couple for dev teams who don't want to do the heavy lifting, but they want to have a show. But you guys kind of done this homegrown. It's gone really well. People like that show. Does it help? I don't know, keep the family together, keep the studio together, keep the games happening, inspire you to keep moving? Like, what role has that played? Because clearly it's an important aspect of all this to you guys.
Yeah, I think we're on I think we just recorded episode 500 and...
Jeez.
20, I don't know. It's been like 10 years that we've been doing it.
It's great.
Almost haven't missed a week.
Yeah.
So we started it because making games can be very isolating, because you spend months or years or half a decade just kind of like in a cave just making this thing, and then you put it out in the world and nobody knows who made it. Like the game just appears out of the ether as far as players are concerned. And like back when we first started, we would get comments, like really, really nasty comments from players. Aside from the death threats, but also, I hope you get cancer. I hope, just some really, really mean stuff. Just because, we made a design decision that they didn't like or whatever. And so we were like, what can we do to help people understand who we are and like that we are real?
Sure.
That we exist as human beings. And so the podcast kind of started out of a desire to do that and kind of connect with our players more and put a face to the games and put a face to the studio. And it also kind of started, like I mentioned before, like that's around the time that Sam was going through his cancer journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also kind of started for us as a desire to almost have like a historical archive of all the things that we were doing and thinking at the time. And it's kind of turned into that, because now like we've gone through that. We've launched several games and gone through that with the podcast. We've gone through a global pandemic, like a lot of things have happened, and it's kind of interesting now to go back and listen to that stuff. So yeah, it's you're right though. It does kind of keeps us anchored, and it kind of gives us a weekly thing to just kind of sit down and just like talk through what's going on in the studio.
I think that's great. I think more studios should do it. Obviously one-man studios. I guess they could if they want, but there's something about that, and sharing it with people on the outside just makes you guys more transparent. And I think it, probably does exactly what you hope it does in terms of loyalty of the fan base. Well, I can tell you this, the game's awesome, and I want my listeners to know you should be playing Crashlands 2. It's available on Steam right now. We have a very PC-centric player base on that show. But if you're playing on mobile, that's fine too. Switch and Switch 2, which isn't out yet, but assuming it'll run there, should, right? All this digital stuff should move forward.
Well, we're not on consoles just yet.
Oh, so that hadn't happened yet. My bad. I thought there was some news about that.
Original Crashlands is, though.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of then. Yeah. Because I bought it there again. I was like, I got to have this on my Switch.
And the cross-save works on all of them.
Yep. So, I carried that everywhere between these devices at home. I've got like this old-ass save that is probably terrible, to be honest. I don't know if I was all that good at clearing everything out, but I had a good time. Right. But anyway, people need to go check it out. Like you mentioned before, your games tend to get incredible reviews, especially on the Steam reviews. That's already happening with Crashlands 2. Just need it in more hands. So please run out, grab it. Crashlands 2 available now, iOS, Android, and your Steam account PC. Mm-hmm. Well, this is fantastic stuff. Seth, anything else you guys want to mention before I cut you loose?
I guess, when is this episode coming out?
We're going to put it up. I'm going to put it up a little bit early. It'll go up. Let's see. It will go up this weekend, probably Sunday, because we just put a show up last night, so we're going to space it a little bit. Probably Sunday, so pretty quick, next couple of days.
Okay. So I just want to mention, if for people who are into Crashlands, we have a limited run of Flux plushies.
Whoa.
Flux is the main character. That'll be probably, I think, closing like within a week or so of this episode coming out. So, if you're interested in that, go grab some of those. They're pretty good.
Up on the website, I assume we can grab it there.
Yeah, we'll have links up on our website at bscotch.net.
bscotch.net, everybody.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Go check it out. Thanks again, Seth. Super awesome talking to you, and I wish you and the team nothing but the best.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Once upon a time, there was a hero named you. Find the next step of your quest at frogpants.com.